Today we're going to be talking about power chords. What, not this? No. Power chords are the basis of rock and roll itself. You've probably heard it on hundreds of different albums, from Iron Maiden to Metallica through to AC/DC. The list is literally endless. Once you learn a power chord, you've learnt 95% of rock music, basically. Alright, maybe not quite that much. So a power chord consists of a root note and a fifth note, and that's pretty much it. It can also include an octave note, which we'll go over in a little while. It doesn't have to, but I prefer to play it that way, and the tablature on the screen will include the octave note as well. What makes a power chord slightly different to other chords is that it doesn't contain a third note. Now, without getting technical and sending you all into a coma, a third note in a chord is what makes the chord major or minor. So a power chord, or rock chord, whatever you want to call it, is neither major nor minor, it's just a power chord. So let's start with one of the mightiest of all power chords, the E power chord. So, as I mentioned, we have a root note and a fifth note and sometimes an octave note. So with the E power chord, the root note will be E, obviously. We're working with standard tuning here, E, A, D, G, B, E. For the E power chord, we're going to play the open bottom E string. And then with the index finger, hold down the second fret of the A string. And then play the two together and you get this. You can also include the octave note, which is the second fret of the D string, which again is E, but an octave higher than your open E string. Just breaking that down, we have the open bottom E, second fret of the A string, second fret of the D string. Play it all together. Playing three strings instead of two just gives it that slightly fuller sound, and that's how I've always played it, and I kind of prefer that sound, but you can just play two strings. Okay, so the E power chord shape we can utilise to play an A power chord. This chord involves the open A string, so we're just moving up a string basically. Play the open A string. Again, second fret of the D string. And second fret of the G string. Play all those together. And that's your A power chord. I'm fretting the D and the G string just with my index finger. You can use two fingers, it's whatever is easiest for you basically, but I find it easier just to hold down those two strings with my index finger. Okay, on to the next power chord, G. Now, the shape of the G power chord, we can move up and down the fretboard to play loads of different power chords basically. So let's go over the shape. So the root note, G, will be the third fret of the bottom E string. Then it's the fifth fret of the A string. Then the fifth fret of the D string. Play it all together. The third fret of the E string I fret with my index finger. And then I use my third finger, or my ring finger, to fret the fifth fret of the A and the fifth fret of the D. You could use your pinky to hold down the D string, but I find it easier just to use your third finger to fret those two strings, and that means you can move around the fretboard a bit quicker as well. So as I mentioned, that G shape, we can now move around the fretboard. So we can move it up to A, which is two frets up, to the fifth fret on the E. So we have fifth fret at the bottom E, seventh fret of the A, seventh fret of the D. Again, played together. And that's the A power chord on the fifth fret of the E string. We can move the shape around. Giving you loads of different chords up and down the fretboard. And same on the A string as well, we can move the shape around. So let's look at the C power chord. The C power chord will be the third fret of the A string with your index finger. and then the 5th fret of the D string, and then the 5th fret of the G string with your 3rd finger again. And again, we can move that shape up and down the fretboard to give us loads of different options. You can move it 2 frets up to play the D power chord, another 2 frets up to play E. So it just gives us a wealth of different chords, moving that shape up and down the fretboard. Okay, we're just going to play a couple of open string power chords to finish off now. We're going to go back to G. So 3rd fret of the bottom E string with your index finger. Now with the same index finger, you're going to mute the A string, so you're not going to fret or play the A string. You won't hear that when you play the chord, so don't worry. So 3rd fret of the bottom E with your index finger. The A string is muted, and then you're playing the open D string and the open G string. You're playing 3 strings, but you're kind of strumming 4 strings. So you're playing the 3rd fret of the bottom E, and then the open D and G strings, and being very careful to mute the A string as well. So you get this. Okay, on to our final power chord, a variation on D. We play D on the 5th fret of the A string. We can also play it with an open D string. Play the D string open, index finger, 2nd fret of the G string, and then I use my ring finger. You can use your 2nd finger, but I use the ring finger, 3rd fret of the B string. So that's open D, 2nd fret of the G string, 3rd fret of the B string. Played together. You can also include the A string, open A string in that chord as well to give you a bit more of a fuller sound. Okay, so that's power chords covered off. You're now pretty much au fait with the entire rock and metal back catalogue of the last 30 years. Congratulations. So just play around with it. Utilise the whole of the fretboard, play the open chord shapes as well, and basically just have fun.